Welcome to Making Life More Better podcast, where we are empowering Black men who grew up without a father to live a godly, purpose-driven life through faith, healing, and sharing our stories. And I am Maurice Walker, your host. On today, I just want to talk about why some fatherless Black men who grew up without a father in the home, tend to pull away sometimes, or maybe even shut down. And there are three reasons why I feel, three of the reasons why I did it before I even realized that is what I was doing. But there are three reasons why I was pulling away or even sometimes shutting down. And in the shutting down part, I'll talk some more about that. But the first reason, and this was something I learned well into my adult years, even after this, I didn't learn it until I started going to see a therapist. And that was fear of abandonment. And that fear of abandonment, that came from, I learned about that from when I started going to counseling after my doctor, my primary healthcare physician. He kept asking me, he said, you need to talk to, who do you talk to? I was like, about what? He said, about things that's going on in your life. And I told him, I was like, I don't talk to anybody. And he said, you need to speak with someone. You need to talk to someone. So after a few months of him asking me, I finally decided to go and speak with a therapist. In my first 3 sessions, she just said I was just answering questions, cut and dry. I didn't elaborate on anything. And that 4th session, at the end of that 4th session, it felt like I had played 3 full court basketball games back to back to back. I was physically and emotionally drained from that session. And it was on not that 3rd session, but the 5th session. She shared with me, she said, Maurice, I feel that you are or have been suffering from abandonment issues because your father was not involved in your life. And for whatever reason, you feel like that's what, when people come into your life, that's what they're going to do. They're going to abandon you. And it didn't hit me right then. I was like, what? Abandonment issues? What man feels like he's being abandoned? And those were some of my thoughts. And then when I started thinking about it sometime after that, I realized that was the truth. I was going through that. I was dealing with abandonment issues, suffering from abandonment issues, and had been doing that the majority of my life at that point in time, and not even realizing that is what was going on and that's what I was dealing with. The second thing, trust issues. And I think that comes hand in hand with the abandonment issue, because you feel as though people are going to abandon you. So I didn't put a lot of trust in people. Now I would, I don't know how that worked out, but it came across, they could tell that I would only I would only trust them to a certain extent. And that wasn't something I had planned in my mind, like, hey, I'm only going to trust this person till we get to here. And it could have been male or female. Anybody that I felt like was getting close to me, without me realizing it, I would shut down, cut off. My trust issues would surface. They would come up, and that person could see it. And they can feel that I wasn't trusting them. And that caused a problem in relationships. When I say relationships, I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about in relationships. I'm talking about just people that were involved in my life, and I would always not allow them to get too close, because I felt like I was going to be abandoned. My thought was, if my father, a man that God allowed to help create me, did not want to have anything to do with me, why would anybody else want to have anything to do with me? Why would anybody else want to accept me in their life? So dealing with that, with my father not being involved, it affected every other area in my life. And that was a tough thing to deal with when I realized that's what it was that I was dealing with, the trust issues. And I didn't want to be that way. I wanted to trust people. I wanted um, I wanted people to feel that I trusted them, but it didn't come out that way. It didn't happen that way, even though I wanted it to. But because of what I went through all of my life, up until that point of realizing what it was, that's what it was. That's what my life was. That's what I knew. That is what was my norm. That was normal to me. But it affected other people that were involved in my life. The third thing is emotional walls. Or I would say even putting up your guards, meaning, and all three of these play hand in hand with each other: fear of abandonment, trust issues, and putting up emotional walls. And they could tell that. And I was in a relationship, and she asked me, she was like, your feelings, your emotions, you just cut them off. They just switch off like you turning off a light switch. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like sometimes you are so warm, so inviting, so friendly. You're laughing and you're joking, and then you turn that switch off, and all of that stops. And it's like none of that ever existed, and that could be a couple of minutes before. And that was an issue. That was a problem. I would put up those emotional walls, the guards, put up my guards, emotional guards, because what I went through, the feelings that I had because my father was not involved in my life, I didn't like having those feelings. So to protect myself, to protect my heart, to protect my emotions, to protect my spirit, I would do these things. I would operate out of fear of abandonment. I would have trust issues. I would put up my emotional walls so people wouldn't get close to me to disappoint me. And did I think everybody was going to do that? I did. When my grandmother passed away on April 4th of 96, when my grandmother passed away, I felt like my grandmother left me. I felt like my grandmother abandoned me. And I know it wasn't fair for me feeling that way, but that's how I felt for a long time, because my grandmother and I, we were very close. That was my girl. That was like my best friend. We laughed, we joked. She fussed, I listened. She would fuss about other people at me, and I would sit there and listen to her, because I know that was her way of expressing. And those were things that, and you know what? It wasn't like that with her, the abandonment issues. She was that person that made me feel like I was somebody, that made me feel like she was my safe space. My grandmother was. And when she passed away, after a long battle with cancer, when she passed away, I felt like she left me. I remember the day that she passed away. I had just picked my aunt up from the airport. And when we were coming back home, and when we got to the street that I lived on, the hearse was at the stop sign where my grandmother had passed. They had came and picked up her body. And that will be a day I will never forget. And I remember laying across her bed that night, and I slept in her bed. And I knew that she would never lie in that bed again. I knew that I was not going to see her again. And I felt like she left me. And I remember laying in her bed crying, asking myself, why did you leave me? Before my grandmother passed, even before she was sick, I would say like, I would want to die first before my grandmother, because I didn't want to go through the feelings of losing her. But I did. I went through those feelings when she passed away. And I think my father not being involved in my life would have even a bigger negative effect had my grandmother and I not had the relationship that we had with each other. Now, those are three things that I did, and that was why I pulled away. And I think that other men that grew up without their father have similar reasons why. And we didn't talk about it. We couldn't talk about it because in our society or in our culture, it was men did not express, men did not talk about things like that. Men couldn't say, hey, I feel like I'm abandoned. It was, you just didn't do that. It was a sign of weakness. That was a part of the man code, that's something that you didn't do. And that hurts so many of our men because of that. We teach our kids, we teach our young boys, young black boys, that same thing. You're not supposed to cry. And women will look at you and think that and would say the same thing. You're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to be the man of the house. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to express or show your emotion. And I would ask, I asked someone I was dating, I like, so are we as men, are we just supposed to disregard our own emotions, like our emotions doesn't matter? Not taking anything away from your emotion, but what about my emotions? What about, and they're like, do you hear how that sound? You talking about your emotions? Men and emotions, those two words, it was like those two words didn't go together. It wasn't a fit. Men and emotion, men and crying. And that hurt a lot of us. And I'm glad I have gotten to a point, or God has gotten me to a point to where I do talk, I do express my feelings, I do express my emotion, because it wasn't doing anything but harming me. And because I do that now, I don't shut down. I don't put up emotional walls or emotional guards. I don't have the trust issues because I am communicating what I want. I'm communicating what I don't want in my space or in my life. So is much better. And we as men, brother, we got to start talking more. We got to start talking, period, to each other. When there's something wrong, tell it, talk about it, say something about it. And if you're around some guys that feel like looking at you sideways, like you're not supposed to be doing that, you're not supposed to be dealing with them anyway. Find another brother that you can talk to, another brother that's not going to be judgmental, another brother that's not going to take what you're telling and sharing with them and go tell and share it with someone else. We cannot continue um, keeping things inside. Life is too short. And I believe that when we do that, when we keep things inside, that's affecting us health wise. That's affecting us emotionally when we do that, when we don't talk. But just simply talking and getting it out, it makes such a big difference. We're getting it out. So now we aren't pulling away from those that are close to us, those that are in our lives. So it's a win-win for everybody that's involved when we decide that we're going to talk, because you deserve to be heard. Your feelings, your emotions deserve to be heard. It's time out for the old way of thinking like men are not supposed to talk, not supposed to express their feelings, express their emotion. I was just watching a video, Dr. J. Barnett. He was sharing a story about his dad's best friend. One of his dad's best friend was, he was dying and he wanted to talk to Brother Jay in regards to wanting him to speak at his funeral. And he became close with him because Dr. J. Barnett, he talks about men. He talks about black men and being able to open up and talking and doing those things. And his dad friend said to him, he said, man, I wish we had somebody like you back in our day when we were growing up that would tell us it's okay as men to talk about things. It's okay as men to open up, express how we feel. Just think of how many older black men feel the way that that gentleman felt. How many black men, period, feel that way. Are you a brother that feel that way? That you don't talk, or you're not going to talk, or you feel like you're going to be looked at a different way if you decide to talk and express your feelings, say what's on your mind? You may be living in a house where when you come home, you can't do that because she don't want to hear you saying that. But your voice, your emotions, your feelings, your heart deserve to be heard, listened to, understood, because you matter. Everything about you matter. And we have gotten so caught up in this world, in cultural and society, that we forget about God's word sometimes. When he says, do not conform to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing, that is something that you're doing on a regular basis, a daily basis. You are renewing of your mind. When we get caught up in this world and start thinking like the world, then things like this happen. Then we don't talk about things. We don't share our emotions. We don't do any of those things. So I want to encourage you, find someone that you can talk to. It doesn't have to be a professional. Find another brother that you can talk to. And when you're talking to him, you see that's not a fit. If you feel like he's going to talk and share your business or whatever, or he's not interested, keep trying. You deserve to be heard. I didn't, for years, I didn't talk. I didn't express. I didn't share because of me going through not having a father involved in my life and all of the emotion and all of that stuff that went along with it. But since God has helped me and I've gotten to this point to where I can talk about it, I can talk to a therapist, I can share with others. I can get on this podcast and talk about not having my father. A few years ago, I couldn't have done this. To sit and do a video and talk about the one thing I wanted the most was to have my father involved in my life. But to sit and talk about it or interview other black men that grew up in similar situation, I could not have done that a couple of years ago. But God has delivered me to this point, to where I am now. Do I still think about it? Of course I do. Do I still want to meet my father? I would love to. But if I don't, I'm in a better place now. I've accepted that. But I do talk now. I do express myself. I do express my feelings. And I want you to do the same, because you deserve to be heard. You matter. Your heart matter. Your words matter. Your spirit matter. I want to tell you, brother, that I love you. You matter to me if you don't matter to anybody else. All right. Take care. God bless. Prayerfully, God spare my life. I'll check you out on the next episode of Making Life More Better. All right. Take care.